Greetings. Bismillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Peace and blessings, divine peace and blessings be upon all of you. I ask that anyone who connects to this space, that they find benefit. I ask that anyone who comes into this space, even if it's for a few minutes of listening in your busy time, in your full life, that you feel elevated, that you get the reminder that you need. In the midst of the news that I've been talking about and sharing about, since all over the world there is news, and all over the world there are people being tested, and all over the world there is warfare, spiritual warfare on some level. I was reflecting on the balance of that, and then also in connection with just choices that I'm making and intentions that I'm setting, not just for now, but for the rest of the year and for my life. Everything connected to moving forward is a balancing act. Everything. So when we're walking, I remember someone saying before that walking is just controlled falling. You know, there's this aspect to the motion that would lead you into falling, possibly, potentially, but there's a control in that, and then one is able to move forward due to the training that then leads to the progression. And so it's the same with life. You know, we're all intending to move forward. There's no individual that on some level isn't intending to move to a next step. And sometimes that next step is really elegant and graceful and controlled and based and reflective of what has been before. And sometimes that step might be wobbly and it might not be so great. So that's a side point, or that's an initial point to make. But this subject of what are we taking in, or what am I taking in my life, whether it is with the company that I'm around, or the foods that I'm consuming, or the information that I'm consuming, and just everything that I'm absorbing. And I can see how, especially when there's something going on a global scale that's dear to our heart, our system, and I say our system because sometimes our system has an entrainment, like our actual system, like our nervous system and our field has an entrainment, or it's been entrained a certain way based on whatever it is that we've been exposed to in our life. So when it comes to this aspect of what am I consuming, there is such a thing as too much, even when a matter is informative, even when a matter is a benefit. So let's just say, for example, I am interested in healing, or I'm interested in walking barefoot, learning about the benefits of being on the earth, which, by the way, there's so many studies, including on a university level, where they've seen that if a person is grounding, if a person is connected to the earth, then the radiation that was in their body, the inflammation that they absorbed from the EMFs, the electromagnetic frequencies, such as I'm looking at the router, all the devices around us, they emit certain energies, frequencies that can cause radiation, inflammation in the body. And in essence, we know that illness is connected with inflammation. And so when we remove the causes and decrease the inflammation, there's a correlation with that when it comes to the illness and the ailments that a person may feel, and of course, thereby the symptoms. So let's just say I'm researching that subject. I'm researching grounding. I'm researching EMFs. I'm researching, how to eliminate that in my life. And let's just say I go really deep into it, really, really deep. And I'm studying and I'm learning and I'm looking at, and just all day long, that's all I'm doing. Day after day after day. But then I never take the time to actually ground. And then I never take the time to be in nature. Or maybe I still go to sleep with the router on, with the Wi-Fi on. Welcome, Wajdan. Assalamu alaikum. So the point I'm saying at this moment, as you step in, I don't know how long you're here for, is what if we're researching a subject, but then the matter that is connected to that subject, we make no time or room for implementation of that. So that example could also be, I'm looking into alkaline diet. How can a diet that's based in living fruits, living vegetables, when I say living, meaning they're not cooked to the point that the enzymes are gone, that the life in it is gone. Because it's fascinating how everything emits light that has life to it. And as as that light is diminished, it's correlating with what is alive in it is diminished. And so the foods that we eat, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. What's your name, sister? Because I've seen you before. It's a blessing to have you here. So everything that we eat, either it is full of life force energy, meaning if you look on a microscope, you would see the cells, you would see movement. If you would look on certain devices that measure the amperes or the light waves, you would see, this has more light, like a fresh tomato or a fresh piece of fruit. If you see the light that it emits, it's a tangible light, as opposed to meat, as opposed to some crackers or some bread. It will not emit the same amount of light because in essence the food is dead. It's not a living food. So let's just say I'm doing that research about living foods and about alkaline diet and how many people have healed and reversed illnesses, cancers, high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, fibromyalgia, arthritis, fibroids, PCOS, multiple sclerosis. I'm going back to different anecdotes now, or stories and studies of people in my mind. So let's just say I've done all that research and I know that this is a benefit. But then I'm sitting there eating ice cream and pizza and Snickers bars. I don't know why that's coming up. There's no Snickers bars even in this country. But let's just say, is that balanced? Right? So in everything we're consuming, there is a call within that consumption. Everything we're consuming of information, everything we're consuming and absorbing around us, there's a call to action. So we may look at the situation that's going on in Palestine. We may look at the deaths that have been on the side of the Israelis, or the deaths that have been on the side of the Palestinians. We may look at that and focus on that. And as I will share and continue to share about the history, not to just look at what's going on now, look at the broader scope, look at Look at what has been going on throughout history. But what is the call within that? There's a call within that. And I didn't think of this until now. I opened the video and started speaking about it. But with every, Assalamu alaikum, Sister Sakina. But with every matter that we are being exposed to, there contains some call to action. And if we find ourselves simply taking in, but not questioning, well, what is the call to action for myself at this moment? What is this global event, for example, what is it calling me to? This is important. If we're going to live a life that is mindful, if we're going to be conscientious of our time, which in and of itself is a kind of call to action that then leads to consequent actions, since thoughts must precede action. So what is the call to action at this particular time? Or any time when we know that there is a disaster going on? Well, right now what's coming up for me is, number one, that we must ponder. Okay, so there's that aspect. We have to ponder. It's so important to ponder. The wisdom that is accessible to all of us cannot be accessed except that we take the time to reflect. This may mean actually sitting down and asking oneself questions. This may mean journaling and writing about a subject. And some of us may need guidance even in how to do that. But I think a good majority of the people, a lot of the people that, everyone I'm following I've met. Almost, I think everyone I'm following I have met. Or if they're following me, there's been some, more often than not, we have met, or there's been some connection through mutual friends. And I'm saying that because I'm sure almost all of you on some level have pondered, on some level journal, on some level are going into what is deeper. But even myself, I'm going to talk about me first. There's times when I'm more consuming than creating, or I'm more consuming than pondering, or I may not necessarily be making prayer in the way that I know I need to, not just for myself, but for the ummah, for the nations, for the Muslims as well, very specifically, who are suffering in different parts of the world. Look at the situation even in China. When was the last time you saw that in mainstream media? How many Muslims were killed? How many Muslims were sent to these camps just for believing in Allah? Just for believing that there's one creator that sent a message to mankind, and the same message throughout history, just for believing that Prophet Muhammad was a prophet, and living lives that are dedicated to morality and dedicated to a life that's not just material. And they're being tortured, and their women are being sterilized. I met a woman whose uncle was taken away in one of these camps. And when he came back, he could not remember his wife and children. I met her myself. So when was the last time I prayed about that? One of my aunties, and she would have been my godmother. If my parents died, she would have cared for me on Salihah, ever since I've been a child till now. The last time I spoke to her, she will always say, remember to make dua for the ummah. Yeah. She always says that. It's almost like her tagline. Make dua for the ummah. And I have faltered in that, and I have not necessarily played my part in the global context, in looking around the world, especially in regards to other believers, and what are they going through, to the point that I can say I got up in the third of the night on a regular basis and with my face to the ground, because that is the closest you can ever be to the Creator, is when you submit and surrender your head, that place that we value so much. I think this and I think that, and think that I, and you take this and you place it on the earth, on the ground. The physical posture representative of the internal intention and aspiration of the soul, which is to submit and to give yourself. So how many times in sujud, in that prostration, where my heart would be higher than my head, can I say just in the past 2, 3, 4 years, or in my life, did I make that a consistent practice? And I'm being called to that. That's my personal call to action. Make dua more for the ummah. Make dua more. There is no question that prayer moves mountains. There is no question. I just in recent weeks have seen the power of prayer. And when I pray for something, Allah answers it. And again, it's answered in different ways, but sometimes it's answered exactly as I asked it. Exactly. And that's why even the words we use are so important, because it was answered exactly multiple times. So I know that when we make a prayer for one, or one makes a prayer even for us, I don't know if you've ever felt it. Have you ever felt someone's prayer reach you? I would love to see a response to that, whether you listen now or later. I have felt prayers reach me. I have felt a person coming out of meditation sending me love, and I had no idea what was going on. I just suddenly felt all this love in my heart for the person. Out of the blue, I hadn't spoke to them in months. And all of a sudden, I felt all of this love. I had to message and say, so-and-so, I feel so much love for you. They said, Hasna, I just got out of meditation, and I was sending love to you at the end of the meditation. And this has happened to me more than once. I don't know if everyone is that sensitive, but what I do know is that me feeling it shows that something's happening, because I had no idea. And it also says that even if you didn't feel it, something is still happening. Do you see? Even if you don't feel a person's prayer to that point that you even know who's praying for you, you are still receiving. And so when you send a prayer, even over a group that's 5 million people, don't think for one moment that it gets watered down. Don't think for one moment that, oh, because I'm sending this prayer to more people, that it doesn't reach them. Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allah is most capable of everything. Sometimes we are projecting the limitations of the human being onto the Most High. And I understand why this may happen. Often it's happening because the idea that we have of the Creator has been, shall I say, bastardized? Or is that too strong a word? I don't know nowadays what is politically correct or not. So many words have literally, so many concepts of the Creator, the one who made everything, the one that I call Allah, the one that some call God, it has been turned into just an anthropomorphic party. Like, we can just do whatever we want, however we want, whenever we want. We can have fun with it even. Like, literally. Like, we can just paint whatever picture we want of God, we can just why don't we make a movie and make Morgan Freeman God? I mean, really, like literally to that degree, where there are people, for example, in Hollywood that think it's okay to take a man and have him represent God. So for those of you who are watching who perhaps are not of the same faith, so good to feel you here, Wichita. Lots of love to you. Most likely, if you were watching movies your whole life, Hollywood your whole life, all of that, you have been exposed over and over and over again to programming that has given the idea of the Creator as being more like a human than anything else. And so it's no wonder that this will translate over into our everyday lives in such a way that we cannot fathom why we would even rely on that Creator, because we interpret everything through a human, can I say humanoid? A humanoid lens, a human lens. That's what's happening. I cannot say that on some level, even with my convictions, that just being so immersed in humanness, the immersion into humanness can at times distance us from the divine. Does that make sense? The immersion into being human, like this focus on the human, people, what these people are wearing and what these people are feeling, and how these people are creating this, and what that person said. Like, how often are we spending time looking at what people say? I mean, I'm a person also. What is she saying? Who cares if it doesn't actually go back to anything substantial? What does it matter if it doesn't go back to anything beneficial? And in that immersion into people, we can lose touch with the divine. We can lose touch with the Creator. And I'm saying it like that, which is better than divine. I've been around these spiritual communities a lot, so to be honest, some things have been watered down in the way that I express it so that I can get more people to grasp. But there's a balance in that too. Yes, I'm going to at times use language that the spiritual communities I'm connected with, they can understand it, they can grasp it. But at times I'm going to use language that's really precise. And so when I say the Creator, that is just one quality of the Most High. That is only one quality of Allah. Again, why don't I tend to like the term God is because God has been used in so many ways that people even will say the gods of this, the gods of that. There's a plurality. With Allah, there's no plurality. It's only Allah, period. Point blank, full stop. Allah. And Allah has very specific qualities and attributes. One of those qualities is that Allah is the Creator. One of the names of Allah is Al-KHAALIQ, the Creator. That's only one. So when I'm saying the Creator, I'm referring to Allah, but I'm also referring to all of the other attributes. Because yeah, you and I create as well, but we don't create from scratch. We don't create from scratch. We don't create out of nothing. We create from that which already is there, and then we refashion it and we reshape it. And even from a scholarly standpoint, there's historical scholars, even from within the studies that are more Salafi oriented, such as Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Kathir and others, that said that creation is divided into 2 points, into two parts. You have the creation of Allah, and you have the creation of the human beings, or the creation of beings with free will. That's us and the jinn. So let's reel it in because I'm on a tangent. So yeah, there's this aspect to immersing ourselves into what is divine and how important that is. Sister Sakina, I just wanted to let you know, I feel the call to say if you'd like to join me on this subject and share a bit, that would be beautiful. I don't know what it is for you right now, your time and all of that, but if not now, another time, let me know if you are open to that. So yes, consumption and absorption. Something else also that comes up is a sign of that which we are absorbing and whether or not it is a benefit and whether or not it is nourishing, has been nourishing for us, will be reflected in our speech. So our speech is the reflection or is the ringing out of what the heart has absorbed. And I remember someone saying that years ago, that the heart absorbs what we're listening to, what we're around, who we're around. And then whatever is coming out of our tongue, or whatever, even I could say our actions as well, but the tongue is like the easiest, it is a reflection of what we've been absorbing. And this is often why, my mother, who raised me a certain way, she will say, a lot of what I'm saying, this is because you've been in Bali. And she's right. There's no question about it. The environment that we're in is going to have an impact upon us. There's no question about it. The issue is when it comes to free will, though, that there are some of us that have to go on a certain journey of experiencing that which they did not experience before. There are some of us that have to get a taste. Not everyone is like that. And this is the thing. When we understand about human nature and categories of people and natures, some natures are more safe. Some natures, they're very content with what they've been given. So they've been given something, it is enough, and they may not feel the need to go beyond that which they've been given. This can be seen in just a regular human existence that is materialistic. It can be seen in from a more secular standpoint. It can be seen from those who are more involved and connected to mainstream. It can be seen in religious communities and households. Not every person who is following a certain path of faith or religion actually is convinced from all angles. Meaning, if you sat them down and you started to ask them some very pointed questions or started to present to them certain information, you would see that there are, I would say, holes there. And that somehow the gaps were perhaps filled in not only with knowledge. Sometimes the gaps are filled in with ego. Sometimes the gaps, and ego doesn't only mean, arrogance. Ego could be the aspect of protective, like, I've grown up in a certain kind of environment. This is what I've known my entire life. That means safety to me. That means security to me. That is the identity that I have had my entire life. This is how I'm known by myself, by my family, by my community. So now if I step outside of that and I'm seen stepping outside of that, perhaps I will lose that network of safety. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's just a reality. And it doesn't mean that because the person chose to stay within that there's no truth in that way of life. But there are others who, they come to the same conclusion, like even within Muslim community, I can say specifically, you can have some that come to I don't want to say a same conclusion, a same way of living their life, meaning an Islamic way, but maybe they did everything. They lived everything. They experienced everything. And then from that place of experiencing every single thing they wanted to, and maybe not even feeling so bad about it, they realized, wait a second, I don't feel so nourished. wait, what about the purpose of my life, of my existence? And then with that, there was the unfolding that then led them to a certain place and position to say, you know what? Sama'na wa ata'na. Sama'tu wa ata'tu. Like, I heard and I obeyed. We hear, we obey, we follow, we surrender. So it's a really interesting subject that I've been experiencing in my own life, and I've been really actually grateful as well to experience, because my nature needed that. My nature needed, in the beginning, yes, the formative years, to be completely, deeply immersed in only, I would say, predominantly Muslim community. And my immersion was only Muslim community my whole life until more recently. I'll say that until maybe 2017. Yeah, until 2017, I would say I only went to Islamic religious schools. I, first of all, grew up in a religious Islamic family, Orthodox. Only went to Islamic schools. Family had me in the masjid, in classes. Very limited. I had no deep friendships or deep connections with people who were not Muslim, period. Growing up in America, but that was the situation. Did I talk to neighbors? Of course. Was I rollerblading in the park? Yes. Did I have parents, grandparents, and relatives at family reunions that I went to, that I saw them and they were all not Muslim and I was the only one? Yes. But those were not my deepest connections. Then from there, after also going to an Islamic private school, okay, I didn't go to public school. Then from there, only religious or Islamic high education overseas. So do you see what I'm saying? So the entire life there was this certain framework. And then there was this desire that came about, you know what, I want to be in the land. Like, I was working for a newspaper in Yemen, started researching more about self-development, started researching more about mindset, started researching more about living foods and healing and natural healing. And that led me to desire experiences and communities and people and mindsets that were beyond what it was that I had been exposed to. And that is why September 2017, I had a one-way ticket to Portugal, because I wasn't feeling nourished and fulfilled after the war broke out in Yemen, and I was back in the States for a couple years, and I did get a chance to learn and study and get a license in massage therapy and things of that nature, but I didn't feel like I wanted to stay there. But I'm grateful that even though there has been countless tests and countless trials, and I guess here they would call it the dark night of the soul, you know, plenty of those, borderline nervous breakdowns, which just are like a cracking open to make space. I feel like I needed certain awarenesses to come full circle and to come with a space of a richness. There's a richness to having experience. There's a richness to being around those that do not think exactly like you. There's a richness to that. And then at the same time, you're able to see the correlations, you're able to see the contradictions, you're able to see, in my case, wow, like I was really blessed. Like I truly was. Now we all have our tests, you know, we all have our tests. And I think for me, my biggest test is not going to be understood by many people. Other Muslim women will understand it more. I think in my essence and my nature, I'm a performer, to be honest, but not performative from the aspect of acting and wanting to pretend, but just extremely creative and extremely expressive. And I have this aspect of me that just is not being fully expressed. It's not being fully expressed. And so, yeah, there's glimpses, there's glimpses, even on my page, on my Instagram. And who knows, maybe one day those won't even be on my Instagram. But this aspect of creative expression and artistic aspects, and me just finding ways to, I think, liberate into what I truly desire from myself. And what do I mean by that? Because I love Islam, and I see the truth that is in Islam, and I see the universal truths that every single being can benefit from Islam. And that is without a shadow of a doubt. And at the same time, I have a lens through which I was given Islam. And I'm reminded of that all the time if I speak to family, for example, or parents. And so it's been just an interesting journey of that balance of the wisdom and the truth that I know is there, and that I feel called to actually dedicate a good portion of my life to sharing. But then at the same time, having that lens of the parents, or lens of others, of how should that look, and what should you be doing, and how should you present yourself. And I understand, even though I don't feel the call to just take everything off, but I understand why there are some women that make the decision to just start from a slate that's not in any way affiliated with anything of faith. I understand it. I do. Because when you just completely wipe that out, it's not just that you're wiping out the visual representation, but all of the people before who think they still have an opinion on what they think you should do and how you should do it and all of that, that's also wiped out. Because it's like, look, it's kind of just like, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I'm doing my thing. And some people need that. Some people need to start from that clean slate. And I see that the women I grew up with that did it early on, like as a teenager, when I say teenager, like 19, 20, 21, they already got everything out their system. It was clear, and then they came back. So that's also interesting, that journey of really saying, my Islam is my Islam. And for those who are not Muslim, you could translate it into, my path is my path, And there's something to starting from scratch. There's something to starting from scratch. Anyway, this went on a whole different tangent. But if there's any major takeaway for anyone who listens to this, in summary, everything that we take in has an impact on us. Everything we consume, whether it is of repast, food, whether it is of thoughts, ideas, words, company, everything around us, we are absorbing. And our speech and our actions, especially when we're alone, are quite reflective of what we're taking in and what we're absorbing. And when there's a lot of immersion into the humanness of life, it's quite important to balance it out with divine company, meaning the Creator, sitting with God. For those of you who say God, sitting with Allah, really sitting and talking to that one and asking that one for guidance. And when we are disconnected, over time, there's this kind of crust that layers and builds on top of our soul and builds on top of our heart over time. Because when we're disconnected and we're listening to this and hearing that and looking at that and going there and there's a crust that can layer. And so imagine if you wanted to communicate with someone and there was a veil between. or there were layers of veils, right? There's a door here, and then there's a curtain there, and then, okay, so you can shout through there, and you can speak through there, or that person may speak to you, but you might have to strain a bit more. And if that door is heavy, maybe you have to get a little bit stronger and like push that door open, or whatever the case may be. It's the same. It's the same if you're connecting to the Creator. It's not an overnight thing. It's not just all of a sudden, oh, like my you know, like the in Hollywood, you know, you just call out to the heavens and suddenly like the light just shines down. It may feel like that at times, but it's not usually going to be that immediate in a dramatic Hollywood way. Do you see what I'm saying? There might be a little bit of crust that is there that the reminder of death can help soften. That's one thing. It may take a moment to just sit with that. Just sit with that crust while you call out, while you ask the one. And then you'll feel this peeling that occurs. And that is why, and I'll end on this, that is why I absolutely love the Quran in the recitation, because it is the peeling away of the crust. Like, it peels away that crust very quickly. And I've seen it over and over. That's the beauty also of the time I've had in Bali, is whether it was after an ecstatic dance, we were talking about 200 people sometimes, little shorts, tank tops, everything out, dancing, shaking, movements, such and such to the music. And then I come at the end, recite Ayatul Kursi, and every person says that comes to me after, I felt the shift. I felt like I heard this before. What was that? I would like to learn that, and so on and so forth. And if you looked, if anyone saw the group and brought their preconceived ideas, they would never imagine. But I've done this over and over in the past 5 years that I've been here. 100%. To the point I'm known in certain areas, in certain circles, oh, Hassan's going to bring some Quran. Like, they know. But it's also more than that. But the point is, you soften the hearts. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ballighu anni walau ayah," relay from me, even if it's one ayah. Because in that one verse is blessings. And Muslims will attest to it. And those people who do not say they're Muslim, that I have been around in Bali and everywhere else, they all have said it. Whether I was in Portugal, whether I was in Bali, whether I was in Malaysia, with people who were not Muslim, whether I was in Thailand, it's universal. It softens the crust. It softens the hearts. And so I call every single Muslim to be more proactive in sharing the recitation. I don't care what your voice sounds like. I don't care if you think it's not beautiful enough or whatever. The blessing of sharing the unchanged speech of the Most High is far more powerful than any preconceived ideas about your voice. When you're singing the words of God, when you're reciting, I saw Phoenix, who she's a singer, and it made me think of that. And she's much more than that. But when you are reciting and when you are sharing that divine speech, that speech from the Creator, and in this case I'm talking about the recitation of the Quran, the tilawa, do we understand that we're talking about the Lord of the worlds? Do we understand that we're talking about the one who made time and space? Like think about that. The one who originated everything. And we have that speech unchanged. Do you think your voice matters? Isn't that something that's worth bringing into every single gathering? I don't care if you're in a corporate meeting, at your job. Isn't it worth it? I think so. I know so. So I'm going to end on that note with maybe a little recitation. أعوذ بالله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العظيم. And I'll post the meaning of that in the post, in the text. Thank you so much, especially Sakina holding it down energetically for me. Yeah, lots of love to all of you. Thank you for anyone who made it all the way to the end. Please let me know in the comments below whatever may have touched your heart, whatever you connected with or resonated with. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next share. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.